So for the past 8 or 9 months, I've been avoiding eating carbs and I've been feeling pretty great. My name is Keegan and I talk about diet and stuff. And so in this video, I just wanted to share with you why I think you should probably avoid carbs, why I personally avoid them, and that sort of thing. Just why I avoid eating carbs in general and why I prefer to eat just protein and fat and that sort of thing. And I think the best way to start this off is just to preface this with a story. And that story starts with me waking up one morning in, I think, March or February of 2024. And I decide that I want to have some breakfast before I go to school. So I wake up, it's 5, 6 a.m. I was trying to wake up early and think I was like an ultra sigma male. So I was like, yeah, wake up early and make some food, yeah. And so that is what I did. I went and I started cooking up some eggs. I cracked some eggs in the pan. That was cool. Those were cooking. I was like slowly cooking them because I didn't want to vaporize them, right? And as they were cooking, I was kind of watching them, and then I started cutting up this pineapple because I was really into eating fruit at that time, and I was like, pineapples are freaking sick. And I still think now that pineapples probably taste pretty good. I haven't had one in a hot minute, but but back then I was a very big fruit fiend. And so I was chopping up this pineapple, like pretty poorly because I'm not really good at chopping up fruit. And so I was like missing corners and just trying to like carve out a little bit extra because there was so much that I had accidentally chopped off with the skin. It was really bad, dude. But I ended up chopping it up, coring it, getting all the stuff out of the way, and then I had this like bowl of fruit. And so as I was like flipping these eggs and frying them, because that's how I like my eggs, I was, munching on this bowl of fruit. And I had stored some extra just because, like there was a lot of fruit there, like there's a whole pineapple, right? And so I poured myself probably like, like a handful or whatever. I ate it, kept eating it as I was flipping the things, and I just noticed I just kept eating it, like I was still hungry. I just kept eating it in like more and more and more, having more of this fruit. And at this point I started getting kind of like full almost, and I hadn't even like touched my eggs that much at that point. And so I was like, okay, we'll hold off on this. I was still feeling kind of full. I had some eggs, and then I was like, okay, I'm good for now. I'm good. And lo and behold, I prepped my stuff. I think I was about ready to leave, and then I was just thinking like, what if I had just a little bit more pineapple? And so I had one piece and another, and I just ended up eating like the whole rest of the bowl. I ate the whole like the whole amount of the fruit that I chopped up. I consumed. Like I chopped up a whole pineapple and then I ate the whole thing. And I went to school feeling like a sick and fat motherfucker, dude. It was bad. And I just felt like sick and gross in my stomach. It felt really really no bueno. And I still had the compulsion to just have more carbs even after that. Even though I felt sick, I was still tempted to eat even more like pineapple and stuff. I was done with my eggs. I couldn't even think to eat anymore. But like that pineapple, it just kept going in, man. It's terrible. And so that is one of the reasons why that I generally avoid eating carbs is I've found in my own life that they have been super easy just to over consume and have way too much of, even though your body's telling you like, hey bro, might not be the best idea to keep going with this, but like if you want to keep going, like okay, like that's the message that my body tells me, bro. It's like, hey man, what are you doing? This probably isn't the right play, and yet I'm just still going. No bueno, to be honest. To and when I'm thinking about that, it reminds me of another story of so I just finished up dinner with my family. We had some like I don't know, some like roast or whatever, right? Like just like typical clean whole food. Everything was good. I was kind of full, not really. And it was like, you know what time it is? Time for dessert. I forgot what I think this was in 2022 or 2023 in the later ends. It was a while ago, but I remember whenever my mom had made some cookies probably like the night before, and they were in this cookie like tin, or I think it was in like a Ziploc bag or a tin. I can't really remember the details. It doesn't matter. But I had one cookie for dessert, just because it's like, yeah, it's harmless, whatever. And then after I'm done with that cookie, I'm thinking, okay, we're good. And yet I find myself yet again over in the pantry grabbing another cookie. And then it happens again and again. And before I know it, I've gone through like half the cookie jar or that half the cookie bag or tin or whatever. I'm halfway through it of like it was full before and then there's half of it gone. I had like 8 cookies or some ridiculous thing, dude. Some ridiculous amount of just sugar and like it's just crazy, dude. Just looking back at that. And again, I had that feeling of like sickliness and almost just like shame, like, bro, what is wrong with me, bro? Why did I eat this many cookies? I have found in my life over and over again, it is so easy to have too much carbs, too many carbs. And I haven't had that same sort of ordeal with protein and fat. Fat, I found it can be a little bit if you drink it. Like for the other day, I made this brisket, and so there was a lot of fat that was rendered out of the brisket, and I had braised it, so there was like bone broth with some beef fat kind of like floating on top, and I poured some in with the brisket, and then I drank it afterwards. But I drink too much too fast. So I will admit, if you have too much, it can make you feel kind of sick because that's how I felt. I felt kind of like, ugh, afterwards. But that's really mostly been after I've like drinking liquid fat, which probably isn't the best form of going about it. So, and so I'm going to also avoid doing that from now on as well. So yeah. But just eating like solid fat, like the stuff that was actually on the brisket that was kind of rendered down a little bit, that was fine. That doesn't normally bother me that much. And it's really hard to overeat that because at a certain point it just becomes like really bland and just kind of gross. And your body's just kind of like, ew, like what are you doing, dude? Stop. But that isn't the case, at least in my experience, whenever you're eating something stimulating like a fruit that is, it's tasty. You get like an interesting texture from it. You got that fructose just like lighting up your brain, and or something that's literally like junk food, like hyper stimulating, like a cookie or some sort of, sugary pastry or treat or whatever. Those things, they like it's like this novel thing every single time. And then there's just a ton of like calories and carbohydrates in them. And from my experience, that caused me to gain a lot of weight, gain a lot of fat very quickly. I gained probably 10 pounds of fat in a couple of months just by overeating food consistently because of this, like just the amount of carbohydrates I was consuming. It was a lot. It was bad back in the day, and back in the day. It was early 2024, late 2023, whenever I, bulked up and gained a ton of fat. And, that's another reason why that I avoid carbs is just because, I don't think carbs in and of themselves will make you like fat. Like, I get like lowering your carbs will probably make you less fat. That's my opinion. And I get like if you monitor your carb intake, you're probably not going to get ultra fat and you monitor everything that you eat. But if you're doing what I was doing, where you aren't really like rigorously tracking your calories and you're just kind of eating until you're full or until you get sick basically, then chances are that you are probably going to get fat just because you're like most people say, like the calories in, calories out thing. Like you're going to be eating a lot of food, like mass wise, so you're probably going to gain a lot of fat. And I mean that's majority of it. It's like you're just eating a lot of food at that point because you're overeating and you're just not keeping track of the food that you're eating. So yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily the carbs themselves made me fat, even though I think even with how they affect your insulin and metabolism and whatnot, I think that I think they probably did affect that in a way, but I think it's just like I just ate a lot in general, and they made me. I wouldn't say they made me, but they influenced me to eat a lot more than I normally would have, and increased my appetite. The chance of me overeating with them became a lot higher, if that makes sense. And so that's why I say that carbs made me fat. And so that's why I avoid them. But another thing with that is, along with getting fat and kind of like slower and like less mobile and feeling worse, I got really whack energy from carbs just in general. Even before I got like, more obese, even before I got, more body fat percentage on me. Even when I was like a leaner person and I was like running and exercising a bunch and lifting and that sort of thing, I still got really whack energy on it. It was like hit or miss on if I had energy throughout the day or not. It was kind of like sometimes I would really have good energy, other times I'd have just kind of mediocre, just like, just being tired all the time. And it would fluctuate just so rapidly. And now that I've avoided carbs for a long while, my energy is pretty stable, assuming that I have like a relatively okay night's sleep beforehand. Like, I'm sure anyone who sleeps for like 5 hours or 6 hours in a night, they're probably going to be pretty tired. And so I've experienced that. Like, if I have like a super early work shift and I don't get to bed early enough then I wake up in the next morning and I'm just like, oh, I'm tired. But I think that's basic how it applied to everyone because sleep is so important just in general. But just I remember my experience just in general being like up and down all of the time on whenever I was eating a bunch of carbohydrates. And that was no bueno, I'll be completely honest. I didn't like that. And I really enjoy the steady energy that I feel now. It's just kind of like rock solid. It goes up and down depending on what I'm doing throughout the day and other factors like sleep, hydration, again, activity, that sort of thing. But it's pretty stable now, and I feel pretty good, just kind of going on. Just flat, even, up and down. Slow waves, not like tidal waves, up and down, crashing, smashing against the shoreline kind of waves. Nothing like that. The next thing, though, is I don't want to be a sugar fiend anymore. And I was kind of saying this in the story before where I was talking about the pineapple, where I said I was a fruit fiend. I would say that I was kind of like a sugar addict, like a fiend for sugar. You know those if you're a younger person, or I mean just in general actually, You probably have seen those people that like can't make it like 5 minutes without their vape pen. I think I was sort of like that with food and sugar in general, where it's like if I had one piece of sugar, it's like I need more, I need more, more, and so just constantly just having sugar here, having a little snack there, right? Ev- like a lot of times I remember having to stimulate my tongue somehow. Like breakfast, it was with some sugary like pancake or some syrup on this thing, or having some like chocolate milk or whatever, right? For lunch, it was having, especially in school, it was having some like ice cream bar along with my lunch that didn't have any sweets with it. And after dinner, it was having dessert like 10 minutes after dinner because it wasn't stimulating enough. And just having more, just needing more. And just like having to constantly stimulate myself like a fiend for this drug. Oh, like just over and over again. Just kind of like like those crack addicts were like, I'm like, I need the sugar. It's just kind of funny to think back, dude. It's like I just like just a constant drive to have more, and it's funny because whenever I cut out carbs for the first 2 weeks, I actually ended up going back to eating carbs for like a week afterwards. But I remember for the first 2 weeks when I just completely cut out carbs, I tried this keto thing for 2 weeks straight, like keto carnivore for like 2 weeks, cutting out all the other nonsense, zero carbohydrates, no nonsense. The first 2 weeks, I remember my body was like screaming at me. It was telling me like have sugar. It wasn't like weird like drug withdrawals or whatever to where it's like I'm like shivering or whatever. I didn't have like weird dangerous withdrawal symptoms or whatever. But my brain was yelling at me. It had these crazy cravings. Every time I would look at something sugary, it was like eat it, eat it, eat it. And it was this weird like voice, like this weird like demented voice in my brain telling me like have the sugar now, eat the sugar. It was kind of scary almost to just have those like weird cravings. And yet whenever I ended up eating just meat and eggs or whatever and just satisfying myself, like satiating myself, I actually felt pretty good afterwards. I was like, yeah, I don't need to eat sugar then. But there would be those times where I would get hungry and my body was just like, eat the sugar now, eat the sugar now, because I hadn't stimulated myself in so long. My body was like, what are you doing? Because it was so used to, this constant stimulation of eating sugar over and over again. And, I don't really want to experience that anymore. And so that's generally why I avoid eating carbs. The other thing though is I just like I feel very disciplined whenever I avoid eating sugary things. So this actually happened yesterday. So my mom made some banana bread, and my mom makes some very good banana bread. I have fond memories of eating it, and it tastes delicious, right? It's very good. But it's got, it's sugary, carby, etc., etc. And I just remember like just smelling it and just thinking like I could cheat on my diet right now. I was just thinking like I genuinely had that thought like I could cheat on my diet right now and have some carbs and you know like probably wouldn't hurt that bad, but I had the self-discipline to be like, no, it's not worth it. I'm just gonna ignore it, look at it, smell it. Might smell nice, like cool, like yeah, like that. That's as closest to tasting it as I'll go. It's just like kind of like getting the aroma of it and be like, okay, that's cool. Smells good, but we're gonna pass. That discipline that I feel whenever I kind of reject that, it makes me feel like I'm stronger like mentally for just ignoring that. Because imagine like a weaker person mentally, they might just cave in and be like, oh, well, what's a little bit? A little bit won't hurt. I didn't think that. I said, I could cheat on my diet right now, but I'm not going to because it's not worth it to me. And that self-discipline, it it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of like, it just makes me feel good to know that I have that level of self-discipline. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm disciplined. I don't eat banana bread, bro. What are you talking about? Just having that, it made me feel pretty good. And I think having that sort of self-discipline to avoid stuff that is, instantly gratifying, like it tastes really good in the moment. And I think having the discipline to avoid that just kind of, it makes you a little bit more of like a patient person, willing to stick out the process and do the thing that you said you're going to do. Like I said that for a year, I'm just going to avoid carbohydrates. I'm going to avoid stuff for a year. I'm just going to try it for a year and see what happens. And so I'm following what I said. I'm like on month 8 and I'm still going strong. And I feel amazing because I've stuck to it and I've had that discipline and I've done the thing that I said I was going to do, which just makes me feel great. And that can go beyond just eating carbs. I think the principle applies broadly. I think if you have an idea for what your diet should be, whether it has carbs or whether it doesn't, is just stick to that, for a set period of time. It's like tell yourself, okay, I'm going to stick to this for a month, and then actually do it. Go ahead and stick to it, regardless of whatever you feel in the moment. Disregard that and go for what you said you're going to do, because just overall, if you do the things that you say you're going to do, you're going to trust yourself more. You're going to feel good. That's how I feel. I trust myself a lot more to do the things that I say I'm going to do because I've said that I was going to stick to my diet for a year. I'm on 8 months so far. I haven't cheated. I feel like I'm feeling pretty confident about that. And so I feel more confident because of that fact. Does that make sense? And so, I am talking about like avoiding carbs and whatnot, but I just want to share that principle with you of just do the things that you say you're going to do. That's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things that I would like to share. But yeah, overall, those are the reasons why that I think that you should probably avoid carbs, why I personally avoid them as well, is just, like sugar addiction, I think is a genuine, real thing. I like to feel disciplined. I like to have consistent energy, not whack energy, like I had on eating carbohydrates. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to overeat food that is going to make me fat. Does that make sense? Like I don't want to overeat food because it's not a good feeling just mentally and physically whenever you overeat food, in my opinion. And so those are the reasons, some of the reasons, majority of the reasons why I think that you should think about avoiding carbs. And again, those are the reasons why I personally do that myself. And so I think the message at the end of this video that I want to share with you is just to experiment. If these reasons were at least somewhat compelling, I would say just give it a try, right? Like, I don't think that it'll harm you to cut out carbs for like a month, unless maybe you're an athlete and you're just you're still in season. Maybe wait until the off season to try it, just because changing energy systems can be kind of whack. I experienced that personally. I didn't find it to be that big of a deal, honestly, but I could see why that might mess some people up. So if you're an athlete, consider it in like the off season, because changing energy systems can be kind of whack. But if you're not, just in general, like it only takes like 2 weeks. If you cut out carbs, your energy will be kind of weird. I wouldn't even say it would be low. It just feels different for those first 2 weeks. And then after that, then you feel pretty good. At least in my experience, that's how it went. And I think that's generally how it goes for most people. So, but overall, I would just ask you to experiment with your diet. Like, don't get stuck in a dogmatic way of, oh, I'm gonna, like, no, this thing is wrong, this thing is bad, this thing is dangerous, oh, blah 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 blah. Try it for yourself, okay? Because I think the biggest study that you can trust is the study that you do on yourself, because at the end of the day, like, studies are just like words on paper. And I get there's like people who tested things and whatnot, but the most important like experiment that you can possibly listen to is the experiment that you listen to in your own life. Like, if you find that eating carbs, you don't actually experience any of the things that I talked about, then and you think I'm a complete wacko, like, okay, cool. Like that's good because you experimented and you found what worked for you, right? Like I'm not gonna go out and attack you for experimenting and seeing that, okay, I like my life more whenever I'm doing this thing. I'm not gonna attack you for that. Okay? I like my life more whenever I haven't eaten carbs because for the reasons that I listed in this video, right? That's why I would encourage people to experiment. Like, it pisses me off whenever people go about it and in such a dogmatic and annoying way where it's like, no, what you're doing is wrong. But it's like, I've experimented in my own life. Have you tried it? It's so annoying. Okay, this is my experience. I would encourage you to experiment and see what works for you, right? I would encourage you to experiment with avoiding carbs, but just experimentation in general is cool as well. So yeah, that's that's a little bit of my rant at the end of this video, just to end it off. But overall, I think that the biggest thing that you can do is just avoid eating junk food as well. I think eating junk food is no bueno. Okay, I'm just kind of yapping on at this point, but I think you get my point here. Experiment, eat real food, that sort of thing. But yeah, if you like what I'm saying, then you should go subscribe to support me. Really appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next one. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye.